Well, good morning, everybody. It was great to have a chat with Mitch at Team Stockdale, Mitch on Twitter, last night. But I also woke up this morning to a comment from a video I did a while back. The video was called I Knew Stephen Avery Was Guilty by the Look in His Eyes. And Beth Gonzalez, rather interestingly, wrote to me, said, maybe you should talk to his female family members, his ex-wife and girlfriend he physically and sexually abused. They have experience with him. They might think differently. You're not very up to speed, are you, Beth? I was in Manitowoc in June at the support rally for Steve and Brendan. Ex-wife Laurie was there with Pete, supporting the boys. We also, interestingly, we'll get on to it later on, in the Convoluted Brian website, blog, whatever it's called, there are some very interesting emails exchanged between Ken Kratz and an attorney representing Jody, because she obviously told Wiegert and Fassbender, Bert and Ernie, to go take a hike, and this did not amuse Kenneth Kratz. Bert and Ernie, at the time, were trying to coerce Jody into saying that Steve had done exactly what you've just said, to physically and sexually abuse her, and she told them to take a running jump. Okay, so maybe, Beth, you want to just get a little bit more up to speed. Well, at least you're doing the right thing. You're coming to one of the right channels to get up to speed and find out information that maybe isn't available on the Gilter side. Okay. Anyway, we're going to carry on with. I've been reading a lot of Associated Press reports. This is one of these blog spots that was done at the time, and I think this is very interesting. This is just before we got the news that Ken decided that he really should move on and resign. And this is from a blog spot called Freedom Eden. There's a nice quote at the beginning of the blog spot. It's a quote from Abraham Lincoln: stand with anybody that stands right, stand with him while he is right, and part with him when he goes wrong. And that's very much what we're trying to do here, is to stand with all the truthers, and hopefully one or two of the guilters will lose their blinkers, will lose their blindness, and begin to see the light. We can but hope. Anyway, this is, as I say, a blog spot from Thursday, September the 16th, 2010. It starts off with an update, April the 1st, 2011. We'll look at that later on. That's going to be interesting. An update, March 28th, 2011. We'll look at that later on. Let's look at this bit here. There's an update, October the 4th, 2010. That was when Kratz resigned. This is previous to that. This is Thursday, September the 16th. And the Freedom Eden blog spot reads like this. Kenneth Kratz, the Calumet County District Attorney, has been behaving badly. Calumet County District Attorney tried to start a relationship with a domestic violence victim by sending her 30 text messages over 3 days while he was prosecuting her ex-boyfriend. Kratz said in a statement Wednesday that he was, quote, embarrassed at this lapse of judgment, unquote, but that the State Office of Lawyer Regulation determined that no professional misconduct had occurred. Keith Sellen, we heard about him, director of the Regulation Office, said he is prohibited from confirming Kratz's statement. Earlier Wednesday, Kratz told the Associated Press, which first reported on the text messages, that the situation was, to quote, a non-news story. Where have we heard that one before? A non-news story. However, emails released by the state show that Kratz wrote to Department of Justice officials that his texts were not sexual in nature and that he was concerned about keeping news of the texts out of the media. Now, Kratz had gained attention for his prosecution of Stephen Avery, who was convicted in 2007 of killing freelance photographer Teresa Holbach in 2005. Now, she died 2 years after Avery was released from prison based upon DNA evidence that cleared him of involvement in a sexual attack. There's also another case that's quoted, but that doesn't really bear any significance, so we'll just move on. It says here, according to the police report, Kratz, who at that time is 50 in 2010, so he must be 59 now, mustn't he? Or maybe 60. Began sending text messages to Stephanie L. Van Grol, 26, after she met with him on October the 20th. See, that's the previous year. Regarding domestic abuse charges that had been filed against her ex-boyfriend. Van Grol reported the text messages to Kokona police 2 days later. the Blogspot, I like this. I simply wrote in big letters, I disagree with Kratz. This is not a non-news story. Kratz was abusive towards a victim he should have been helping. Van Grol reported the text messages to police just 2 days after the harassment occurred. She clearly found the texts to be out of line and was concerned about their impact on her case. Apparently, Kratz can handle embarrassment. He won't resign as a result of the revelations. As I say, this was before we got the news. So, we carry on. A Wisconsin prosecutor known for 2 decades as an advocate for crime victims says he is embarrassed about sending sexually suggestive text messages to a choking victim while he was prosecuting her ex-boyfriend, but will remain in office. Calumet County District Attorney Kenneth Kratz issued that statement Wednesday after the Associated Press reported on the 30 texts he sent to a 26-year-old woman who had complained to police last year. A police report shows he repeatedly sent Stephanie Van Grol text messages in October 2009 trying to spark an affair. He wrote, "Are you the kind of girl that likes secret contact with an older, married, elected DA? The riskier, the better," Kratz wrote in one message. In another, he wrote, "I would not expect you to be the other woman. I would want you to be so hot and treat me so well that you'd be the woman. Are you that good?" Kratz was prosecuting Van Grol's ex-boyfriend on charges he nearly choked her to death last year. Kratz was also veteran chair of the Wisconsin Crime Victims' Rights Board, a quasi-judicial agency that can reprimand judges, prosecutors and police officers who mistreat crime victims. It just beggars belief, doesn't it? The Blogspotter put, "Perhaps I'm misrepresenting Kratz's message, but, quote, I would want you to be so hot and treat me so well that you'd be the woman. Are you that good?" Certainly sounds sexual in nature to them. Kratz wrote, "I have never been the subject of attorney discipline during my entire 25-year career." No, friend, you managed to hide your goings-on in your 25 career, and until today have enjoyed a spotless reputation. No, Krent, we lots of people, when they mention people going out on a date with Ken Kratz, they were like, you want to be careful. Have enjoyed a spotless reputation as a vigorous advocate for crime victims. It's just guffaw, isn't it? It's just BS. Van Grol told police in Kokona, Wisconsin, where she lived, that she felt pressured to have a relationship with Kratz, or he would drop charges against her ex-boyfriend. Kratz said he immediately removed himself from the prosecution after learning about the complaint, and the State Department of Justice took over. Kratz said he resigned from the Crime Victims Board, which he helped create, after more than a decade as chair, as a self-imposed sanction. And adds that he and his wife filed for divorce last December. I pity the poor Mrs. Kratz, but eventually she got shot of him. The Blogspot carries on. Self-imposed sanction, ? Oh, come on. I don't think that sanction adequately addresses the matter. Van Grol wrote, or said in an interview, nothing really happened to him, and I had 3 days of hell. Van Grol said in a phone interview with the Associated Press, they gave him a slap on the wrist and told him not to do it again. If it was anybody else that did something like this, they'd lose their job. Domestic violence experts called Kratz's text messages disturbing and unethical for several reasons, including the power differential between a prosecutor and a much younger abuse victim. If what's been alleged is true, it's sad a prosecutor would use the same sort of power and control over a woman who has already experienced that in her personal life, said Patty Seeger, Executive Director of the Wisconsin Coalition Against Domestic Violence. Kratz's behaviour is terribly disturbing, sending 30 text messages in 3 days to a crime victim when he should have been focusing on prosecuting her ex-boyfriend isn't a minor, momentary lapse in judgment. Did Kratz just snap on this one occasion with Van Grol, or has this been a pattern with him, asked the blogger. It's possible he treated other victims the same way and they didn't come forward and file complaints. Well, I think we know the answer to that, don't we? They certainly did come forward in their droves. Such an incredible lack of respect for a victim of abuse is inexcusable. And that's absolutely correct. That's one of the rules of ethics, to treat everybody with respect. In Van Grol's case, Kratz became part of the problem. We then have a list of all of the messages that he sent, but I've already been through all of those, so we can just skip forward to some more opinions and comments by the Freedom Eden blogger. He put, after obviously reading through those 30 sex messages, these messages don't constitute professional misconduct, ? Good grief. If that's the case, he's put the bar for misconduct is set incredibly low. I think what he really means is that, it's absolutely ridiculous that, how high is the bar set for misconduct? Sexting a victim about her low self-esteem and suggesting she fears she can't successfully, quote, play in his big sandbox is not professional. Kratz obviously wanted to keep the messages out of the media because they are so inappropriate, and he's put could damage his career. Well, we know it did completely destroy his career. Moreover, he lied about the messages not being sexual in nature. The fact that Kratz was harassing a victim in this manner is very troubling. However, it's also very troubling that the State Office of Lawyer Regulation determined that no professional misconduct had occurred. Seriously? He put, what? ? Kratz did not conduct himself professionally. I don't think this is a grey area. Kratz texted, why would such a successful, respected attorney be acting like he's in 7th grade? That's a good question. Citizens of Calumet County deserve a district attorney that can be trusted to behave better than a junior high school kid. Kratz should be committed to serving the community in a professional manner rather than serving his own desires. I think Kratz's texts go way beyond embarrassing. They are not befitting an individual holding the office of district attorney. We do have a second part, so we'll look at that maybe tomorrow, okay? As I say, in terms of chronologically, I should maybe have included this earlier, but it's nice to go over this stuff to see what people were thinking just before Kratz finally bit the bullet and terminated his awful career, sexting career and attorney career. Anyway, that's all I've got time for today. Catch you again soon. Bye for now.